When life feels dark, most people do one of two things, and they're both a mistake. Some people push harder, which leads to burnout and feel guilty. They're trying to fix it and make it better, and it just exhausts them. And then the other thing that people do is they just give up completely and feel like there's just no hope. But what happens if there was a third way, a way not just to survive, but actually grow through that experience, through that difficult season? Well, that's exactly what I want to share with you today from my own experience of going through very dark times. Welcome to A Little Nudge. My name is Derek, and for the last 3 decades I've been helping people explore faith and relate it to their ordinary everyday life. And in these videos I'm just giving you nudges and tools to help you live a deeper and a more meaningful life. So I've walked through lots of dark winters in my life. I've lost my dad a few years ago. I've went through a very painful divorce. I've been bullied at work. I've been off with stress diagnosed. And in all that time, these are the 5 lessons, the 5 tips really, that have been most useful in helping me get through those dark times. Okay, and the first tip comes from probably one of my favourite quotes ever, and it's this one: if winter comes, can spring be far behind? Because when you're in the winter season of life and it feels dark and it feels cold, it can feel like it's never going to end. It can feel like this is the new normal. This is the reality. This is all there is. But when we think about life in seasons, some seasons are very, very long, but they are a season. They're not an eternal destination of life, if that's how it's always going to be. There's a famous chapter in Ecclesiastes that says for everything there is a season. And that means that whatever it is, no matter how long it's lasting, it is actually temporary. One day it will come to an end. That doesn't mean you need to kind of dancing around because one day spring will come. It's still winter. It's still dark and cold. It's still painful. You're still carrying that loss or whatever the difficulties might be. But the hope that this isn't all there is, that it won't always be like this. And I've found that that mindset can be so freeing and liberating. Certainly for those of us with faith in an afterlife, even if the pain lasts the whole of this life, actually it's not the be all and end all. There is hope of a better future one day. And again, that doesn't mean that it doesn't stop the pain being painful, but hope can be so powerful in sustaining us and remembering that this is temporary. The second tip and the second idea that I've found so helpful, it came actually when I was flying once. And I don't know if you've ever been flying and you fly, and I love it when you see the land getting further and further away and you see the trees and the houses and the roads and the landscape, and then you get to that point when you get above the clouds and you don't see the land anymore. You don't see it for a long time, till probably you get to your destination typically and you start to go down, and then maybe you see the mountains or whatever it might be where you are going. And the second tip is that idea that even though you can not see the land, it's like still there. Do you know what I mean? It still exists even though it's been clouded by what's going on. And so the second tip is to step back and regain perspective. And it's easy for us to be all consumed with the kind of darkness and what we can see or what we can't see. There's a line in a Wren Collective song that says this. It says, what's true in the dark is true in the light. What's true in the light is true in the dark. If something is true and real, then actually circumstances don't change that, but how we feel about it does change. And so sometimes it's good to regain perspective. One of my favourite lines of Radiohead's song is, just because you feel it doesn't mean it's there. Just because you feel it doesn't mean it's there. So sometimes it's good to step back and think, actually, what do I really believe about myself? We can lose confidence, we can doubt ourselves, and we think, actually, when it was light, when I was in spring, what did I believe and trust about myself? We can doubt God, is he good? Is he faithful? Is he still there for me? And we can think all sorts of things when we're going through tough times, but it's good to remember what was true in the light is still true, even though it's dark. And then perhaps what we think about life in generally, we can feel a sense of despair and there's nothing good in the future. But it's worth stepping back and gaining perspective. And just because we're above the clouds and we can't see it at the moment doesn't mean that it's not still there, that it doesn't still exist. I remember when I was going through a divorce and I went on holiday with my 2 children for the first time, just the three of us, and it was kind of fine holiday, but it was a bit weird for all of us. And I remember praying one morning and I had my journal, and I just felt like this despair, and it was like the clouds, all I could see was like darkness. Nothing would be good again. It was just about coping with what is. And as I was praying and writing my prayer, I heard this whisper from God, and it was just like, what happens if the future was better than the past? It wasn't like he was promising anything, but he kickstarted my imagination. It's like, what happens if your relationship with kids is better than it was in the past? What about if your finances? What happens if your joy and your happiness? What if you have some relationships in the future that were better in the past? And it's almost like he just regained me perspective, and I'd lost everything through the clouds, and I started to just see things that were possible once again. And so sometimes we just need to step back and regain perspective when things feel dark and cold. The third thing that we need to do, or I found helpful to do when things have been going through like this spiritual winter, comes from Ecclesiastes 3 verse 1, which says there's a time for every activity under heaven. There's a time for every activity under heaven, meaning that certain activities have got their right time and their right place. And winter is different from spring. Each season has a different purpose, and sometimes like outside in gardens and fields, in winter it looks like nothing is going on, but actually there's lots going on. What's going on is preparation for spring. There's like preparation going on under the surface for spring, and we can get excited at spring if we see things starting to grow, but that only happens because of what's happened in the soil during winter. If the winter stuff didn't happen, you wouldn't have a spring. And so the question through our winter is actually, what does this season require of me? Don't compare it to summer when everything's fine and feeling good and we're doing lots of external stuff. Actually, what is going on? How does God want to prepare me through this season? And for some of us, actually, when we've had loss, the season is just to grieve. And like, that's what I'm supposed to do. If we've got really bad health situation, then actually we're supposed to rest. If life's really difficult, maybe you've got young children, that's really draining and difficult, and you can't do some of the things that you did when you were young, free and single. Actually, what it requires of you this season is to invest in your children. If you're in your 20s and you're working a full-time job, and maybe you're studying in the evening and you're investing in qualification for the future, then actually you're really busy working so many hours. For that season, you're laying a foundation for the future, no matter how hard it is. And so sometimes, I think there's a quote by E.M. Forster that says we must be willing to let go of the life we had planned so we can have the life that is waiting for us. And that's what God was saying to me when I was on that holiday thinking about my divorce and journal. It's like, you've got to let go of the life you had in order to embrace the one that is coming, really. And that happens by just thinking, what is required of me in this season? Don't compare it to summer, to spring. Actually, just what is the preparation? Because when spring comes, spring only really has life because of the preparation that you've done in winter. Number 4 is to strengthen your roots. You know, when life's under strain and stress, you need to strengthen what's inside. If you knew a storm was coming, sometimes people will repair their fences and look after what's going on, build their foundations. And so that's something that we can do. Sometimes we don't get warnings because we're just in the midst of it. But how do we strengthen our roots so that we've got a solid foundation to cope under the extra strain of going through a dark winter? And that can mean different things. For some of us, it will mean spending time in prayer and deepen our connection to God. I remember one time when I was heading into a very difficult circumstances, and I didn't realize how bad it was going to go. But God told me in advance I needed to strengthen my roots, and I need to double the amount of time I spent praying, reading my Bible, because I just needed to be rock solid for what is coming. Maybe you just want to take in some nourishment, some spiritual nourishment, mental nourishment. You want to be watching the right YouTube videos or books or getting inputs, podcasts that's going to inspire you, or people are just talking about difficulties that you can relate to, and it's just going to strengthen you. Maybe there's particular people and friends. Maybe you need to seek out a mentor, or just take on less. You know, you just need to have more rest time because of what you're going through. There's a famous Leonard quote that says, "There's a crack in everything, it's how the light gets in." And there's that sense in when we're going through difficult times, actually we can strengthen our roots, and that's a way for the light to get into our lives. The strain and stress of winter opens us up to new possibilities of God transforming us and healing us and strengthening us, but we've got to kind of respond to that and make space to that. Don't be too pressured with yourself. Don't make it impossible and put a burden on. I've got to do this, got to do that, got to that. Be gentle of yourself, but be wise in how you can strengthen your roots. Okay, and then number 5 is, for some of us, this is the hardest one. It's easy to feel like you need to do it all on your own. When we're going through a tough time, we want to sometimes crawl up in a ball and withdraw from the world. But the true thing is we all need support, that it's not a weakness asking for support, it's actually wisdom. And even if it's the last thing you want to do, really just try and reach out to some people who can walk alongside you. And you don't just ask anyone, you need to be wise about who you reach out to. Depending on what your struggle is, not everybody can understand or relate to it or be able to be of use. And sometimes what I've found helpful is when you're reaching out of support, people can be a bit lost on what to do to help. So tell them. Say, actually what I need is just go to the cinema and not talk about anything. Or what I need is for you just to come round and cook me a meal, or for us just to go for a walk together. Or what I would really value is just us praying together. Or I would really love if I could just share what's going on for me and for you to be listening. I don't need you to give advice or fix it. And it can empower others if we tell them what we need. Because some of us will need different things depending on the way we're wired and all that sort of stuff. So reach out. Don't isolate yourself, because that's definitely not going to help. Be careful who you ask and who you seek help. You want people who are wise, who are going to help. But perhaps let them know what you're looking and what you're seeking from. And I don't know what you found most helpful through your own difficult times, what's got you through those dark times. Put something in the comments. I'd love to know your pieces of advice and wisdom. And if you're looking for very small and simple ways to generate more joy in your life, then you want to check out that video next, where I just give you 5 ways, 5 little things you can do to feel instant joy. And that might just help you as well. But thanks for watching anyway, and I will see you on the next video.